Poplio. Today, on the 26th day of my action, I will talk about the social benefits of a global population stabilization law. Number one, by placing the onus on the continuation of our species, the evolution of our civilization, and the health of nature, rather than on individual happiness, corporate profits, and national pride, we set mankind on a lasting foundation. We give people a set of common denominators on which to build lasting peace, and we set our civilization on a path of re-establishing equilibrium with the natural elements. Achieving individual happiness in a socio-politically sick society and on an environmentally ill planet is an impossibility. But once we have a healthy society and a healthy world, we can easily achieve a healthy mind and a healthy body, and therefore individual happiness. Our priorities are now upside down and inside out. We must set them right. This will reprioritize our world. Two, there is nothing to gain and everything to lose by crowding even more people on an already overpopulated planet. Overpopulation causes not only the destruction of the natural environment, but also the destruction of society. For as more people compete for the same natural resources, sharing those resources fairly becomes less likely and eventually impossible. Conversely, there is nothing to lose and everything to gain by uncrowding the planet. For as fewer people compete for the same natural resources, sharing those resources fairly becomes more likely and eventually easy. At this point, the ignorant will say that the global population is already stabilizing, without realizing that the reason the global population is stabilizing is because governments and organized religions have had both feet on the population brake since 1945, with the help of a brutal package of depopulation weapons composed of covert chemical, coercive biological, subversive, psychosocial, and perverse economic methods of population control to undermine the family structure, fertility, and longevity. This will decrowd the world and give us and nature breathing space. Three, once our planet is no longer overpopulated, it will be a cakewalk to clean it up and to provide every living creature, be it human or otherwise, with the space it needs to thrive. Our goal must be to return half the global landmass and 3/4 of the ocean surface to nature. This will decontaminate our planet and create space for all creatures, small and large. Number four, no one will die alone anymore and among strangers in sterile hospital beds disfigured by chronic illness and confused by powerful drugs. Everyone will choose the place they love most to die in and the people they love most to die with. And no one will die with their affairs in chaos anymore and without having transferred their wealth to the next generation in a rational, conflict-free, and timely manner. As such, there will be no more death wishes directed at the old to corrupt the minds of the young, and no more legal chaos and conflict to corrupt the peace within the family. This will demystify death and pacify families. 5. Once the existing package of covert chemical, coercive, biological, subversive, psychosocial, and perverse economic methods of population control are retired, the epidemic of non-communicable diseases that now kills 74% of us and will soon kill 98% of us will stop virtually overnight. There will no longer be a chronically ill population, there will no longer be people disfigured by obesity, and there will no longer be an epidemic of cancer and cardiovascular illnesses to incapacitate us and make our lives miserable and our quality of life non-existent. Virtually everyone will go to their death at age 75 in perfect physical, mental, emotional, and psychological health, having made peace with their relatives, with the world, and with God. Confined to the past once and for all will be all situations when human beings must endure and suffer the indignity of being a physical and financial burden on their children and the state. The even greater indignity of having to wear adult diapers and have others change them in and out of them, or the greatest of all indignities of no longer remembering one's name or the faces of the people one loves. We will all die with dignity and proud to be of service to mankind one final time. This will redignify old age and give purpose to death. Once required assisted dying, RAD, is in place, the old age dependency ratio defined as the number of individuals aged 65 and over per 100 people of working age, defined as those aged 20 to 64, will fall from the current crippling rates of 35 to 50% to less than 20% within a year or two. At that point, governments will afford to give every retired person a pension they can actually live on and not the starving pensions people receive today. And while currently anywhere between 10 to 30% of the elderly population in every developed country on the planet is left without any pension whatsoever by governments, which is unacceptable, this will no longer be the case once RAD is active and we are all radded from this life into the afterlife, if such state of being even exists. None of our parents or of our elderly will be forced to beg for a loaf of bread or a log in the fire once we all die by RAD. Old age poverty will be a distant memory and an ugly nightmare no one will care to recall. This will disimpoverish retirement. Once the RAD is in place, everyone employed in physically demanding professions will be able to retire at 60, while everyone employed in intellectually demanding professions will also be able to retire at 60 if they so choose, albeit with a reduced but still sufficiently large pension to live on. And since all elderly will be unpoisoned and therefore happy, their retirement years will be a period they can actually enjoy, be it by traveling, pursuing hobbies, or babysitting their grandchildren. Our parents will have 15 years of tranquility and enjoyment, of philosophizing and philandering if they happen to be widowers, and of exploring and pursuing the things they always wanted to but never had the time or the freedom to do it. And ill health will no longer stand in their way, since no such state will exist in the post-mass poisoning age. Our parents will be strong and free, healthy and happy, independent and carefree. And so will we when our turn comes. This will guarantee well-being in retirement. 6. Conversely, once RAD is in place and jobs are freed for the next generation in a timely manner, none of the young will suffer the indignity of being unemployed and of feeling superfluous or even useless. And none of the young will be forced to delay or abort their plans to form a family and have children for lack of a job. And none of the young will be forced to delay their maturity, find gratification in video games long into their 20s, live in the virtual world since that is the only one they can afford, and be self-absorbed to defy their impotence. This will de-narcissize youth and empower the young. None of the young will be forced to accept and tolerate jobs that do not pay enough to sustain a family and raise children, for such jobs will no longer exist, since none of the employees or employers will be saddled with outrageous taxes that governments desperately need to support an unsustainable old age burden, a criminal military-industrial complex, parasitical professions, an overblown bureaucracy, a demented technocracy, and a self-entitled and genocidal scientific class. The young will be freed of all these burdens and parasites that are now suffocating them and robbing them of a future by condemning them to a delayed life and perpetual misery. This will unburden the young and give them the wings they need to forge a better world. 7. I need not remind you that the need to control population growth has forced governments and the international system to turn our environment into a cesspit of Depop poisons. This is why we're all overweight or obese by the time we're 30, and many by the time they're 10. That is why we're all chronically ill by the time we're 50. That is why more and more children are autistic or suffer from serious developmental disorders. That is why 10% of the population takes antidepressants at any given time and 70% over the course of a lifetime. That is why 10 to 30% of the population, depending on the country, is addicted to illegal drugs and the rest to alcohol and tobacco to make it through the day. We have become a species of zombies, so thoroughly dysfunctional that our forefathers would not even recognize us as humans if they had the opportunity to take a good look at us. This will decontaminate our world and depoison our minds and bodies. If we, can, if we continue in this vein, we have at most 25 years before we collapse biologically, having already collapsed reproductively. 10% of us have already also collapsed intellectually. Our governments, driven by demented scientists, self-serving technocrats, and perverse billionaires, have done enough damage to our genetic and intellectual endowments to reverse at least 500,000 years of evolution. This will restore our genetic and intellectual endowment. It is therefore a matter of saving our species from a process of devolution caused by the inability and unwillingness of our spiritual and governing classes to enlighten and empower us with the truth. 8. By restoring the truth, we will restore the human organism to its former glory, and we will become 10 times as happy, 5 times as potent, 3 times as strong, and twice as smart within a generation or two. I need not spell out the advantages of that other than to say that we will have saved ourselves from certain extinction and reset ourselves on nature's path towards our continuous evolution. Our glory will shine again as it shone in the Garden of Eden, as it shone when God created us to be the apex species, and as it shines in the eyes of every parent at the sight of their newborn, healthy baby. This will heal us and reset our species on its natural evolutionary path. Never again will there be a parent forced to raise a disabled child, for there will never again be disabled children. Never again will a mother bury a son or a father bury a daughter with cancer, a disease that never existed before the chemical depopulation program began and that will never exist again once the mass poisoning stops. Never again will our children's sexuality be destroyed to such an extent as to prefer the anus to the vagina, or who will want to have their sexual organs amputated and replaced. No such perversions will ever again trouble our minds or disturb our tranquility. This will de-tragicize our lives and de-pervert the world. If that is not quantifiable enough for you, keep in mind that we will have eliminated all conditions for conflict and war forever. Without secrecy and poisons, there will be no conflict and sickness. There will be no parasites among us whose livelihoods depend on manipulating us to extinction. There will be no criminals among us parading as experts. There will be no old tricks and fancy religious habits contriving new forms of genocide and new ways to drive us to suicide. Yes, Pope Leo, it is you and your cardinals I am talking about. There will be no more evil, for we will have deprived the devil of his market and of his products. And that will result in eternal peace within our own souls, between the conduct of men and between the actions of nations. This will deparasitize the world. 9. The current system has harnessed our labor and efforts to our own destruction. Those working for Big Chem are producing hundreds of poisons that have no utility other than to make us sick and sterile. Those working for Big Pharma are manufacturing drugs and vaccines that are not meant to heal, but kill, or at best, just manage diseases, so that pharmaceutical companies have lifelong clients and the state can extract big taxes from pharmaceutical companies. Those working for industrial agriculture are manufacturing and using fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and desiccants that are designed to poison our food system, if not by their very use, then by their overuse. Those working for the medical system are prescribing drugs that kill, not heal, and are using protocols that kill, not heal, and this is all by design. Doctors have become henchmen, dentists have become castrators, and scientists have become emasculators of bodies and perverters of minds. And so we can take every industry and every profession, and we will find that there is not a single one that is not doing its bid for the depopulation program. From NGOs to the police, from the military to intelligence services, and from teachers to spiritual leaders. Even the humble barber is applying creams and lotions on your face and in your hair designed to sterilize, if not kill you. This will restore our true worth and sanity. In the current system, we're all beasts of burden, harnessed to either walk towards the abyss and fall in it, walk backwards and fall over each other, or walk sideways to get nowhere. Once we all trot along nicely towards constructive end, civilization will become twice as productive, 10 times as fast, and we will all be twice as rich as the previous generation. This will disenslave and enrich us. Because half the state works against us, society takes 2 steps forward and 1 back in one decade, and 1 step forward and 2 back in another. For the past 10 years especially, it has become painfully apparent that not only are we not making any progress, but that we're actually regressing in almost every way. Henceforth, we will walk quickly and steadily towards forward and progress on every front towards a higher and more evolved civilization. This will de-sabotage society. 10 and last, clearly anything we do from now on can only be better than what we have done so far. We are being led by criminals, cretins, and cowards, because the criminals, cretins, and cowards among us refuse to think and face the facts. Our entire civilization has been boxed in by crime and stupidity. Henceforth, we will ban crime from the core of our society and smarten up our species. Anyone who commits crimes while in positions of power will be put to death. No ifs, buts, and maybes. And anyone who refuses to think will be put to death. This will cleanse government of criminals and de-idiotize our species. Yes, my friends, we can have a just, healthy, and prosperous society, but not if you keep following the current leaders who can't tell shit from goat droppings. Thank you for your attention.